Hi again. In this Freedom Whence by John Wesley Bready, page 342, the last chapter, Freedom Shall Live. He has just been dealing with the impact of John Wesley. Well, Wesley had contemporaries who, in other ways, have impacted the world right up until now. He deals with some of them here. Turning now to a second stream of modern historical development, we start at the same point, that is, the life of Wesley, the late 18th century. Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu all sojourned for prolonged periods in England when the reign of Deism was at its zenith. With lavish flattery, they were feted by the pagan naturalistic society then controlling English affairs. So when these loquacious publicists returned to their own country, each carrying back the new naturalistic philosophy learned from the smart set in England, and when they had embroidered it with rhetoric and epigrams, it became the philosophy of nature and humanism that paved the way for the French Revolution. That revolution, in turn, culminated in the Reign of Terror, when Paris gutters ran red with human blood, when a prostitute was crowned goddess of reason, and when each new champion of freedom, crying liberty, equality, and fraternity, rushed his fellow champions to the guillotine, lest they rush him there first. So ended the first French Republic, denying all spiritual values and mocking God. From France, this naturalism traveled by various roads to Germany, there becoming the philosophy of the perfidious Frederick the Great, imbibed through the writings of Voltaire. So warm indeed was the attachment of Frederick to the skepticism of Voltaire, that after prolonged correspondence and repeated invitations, he persuaded the Frenchman in 1750 to come to Berlin as his king's chamberlain, with a pension of 20,000 francs and board at one of his royal palaces. Between these guileful characters much friction ensued, and after 3 years they parted in a quarrel, never to meet again, and each to malign the other. But the despotic Frederick, having placed his imprimatur upon the new philosophy, already was undermining true Christianity in Germany. Already, too, he was organizing Prussian life on a materialistic and militaristic base. Consciously or otherwise, much in the succeeding philosophies of Kant and Fichte pointed also in a secularistic direction. But it was left to Nietzsche, the son of a German pastor, to carry this naturalism to its logical goal. Nietzsche became hopelessly insane at 44, and for 12 years, till his death in 1900, remained a madman. But before lashing his own mind into madness, he injected mental poison into the military oligarchy that so largely controlled his nation. Nietzsche's revolutionary philosophy centered in the will to power, the Superman, and the overlord state. An iron will to power, according to Nietzsche, is the first qualification of the virile, aggressive man, who is nature's only aristocrat. The man who embodies this will to power in its arch degree is the true Superman. For him there is no moral law, pity, remorse, or compassion are to him but the expression of sniveling weakness. Nothing will curb the satisfaction of his own desire, no scruple, no contract, no religious superstition, no veneration for anything true, beautiful, or good. His own pleasure is his only law, and his weaker fellow men are puppets in his hand to work his will, which is his only God. The overlord state, moreover, must be under the dictation of the supreme Superman, whose will is dominant over all his underlings. Christianity and democracy to this superstate are superstitions, the marks of degenerate peoples who have failed to rear supermen. It follows, accordingly, that the complete Superman, who has so lorded it over his countrymen as to create a superstate, must of necessity, and in ever-increasing circles of power, seek by all means to subjugate all surrounding peoples to his yoke. The subsequent trend and tragic culmination of this essentially pagan philosophy is a matter of recent historical record, and Bready writes this, of course, as Hitler consolidates his power in the late 1930s, before World War II. And then there's a subhead, A Common Legacy. the instinctive rapprochement of the great freedom-loving peoples for the defense of liberty, when once a reversion to primitive terrorism was apprehended, is a phenomenon not difficult to explain. For deep calls unto deep, and a common heritage of freedom is a sacred tie. The man who left the deepest spiritual impress upon the free institutions of the English-speaking world preached continually, "The world is my parish." And of course he's referring to Wesley's influence, the other influence going from around 1750 to today. Also, always he emphasized that God hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. Always he taught that liberty, a priceless boon from God, is the fruit of a high faith. And always, too, he insisted that the source of all human dignity resides in man's spiritual potentialities. So Wesley embodied in his message and in his dealings with men, the poorest of men, the dregs of English society at the beginning, the compassion which is the core of Christianity, the opposite of the contempt which the Nietzschean philosophy has imposed upon several generations since. The evangelical revival, together with the new Puritanism it created, not only inspired the epic era of humanitarianism and social reform, it also established the moral foundations upon which the self-governing institutions of the Anglo-Saxon and American peoples were reared and maintained. I'll put in a link to a meditation from Jaroslav Pelikan, the great church historian, on the influence of Nietzsche. And he makes the point that Nietzsche was actually haunted by Christ. God is dead. Yes, he said that. And Superman does reign. But nevertheless, there was a certain ambiguity in Nietzsche's philosophy that is often not noted among those who only see the negative in it. I'll put that link on your screen. See you soon.